Hello everyone, a very good morning and a very warm welcome to AITAREYA Institute. This is me, Manvi Srivastav, and I will be taking current affairs for the day. Today is 10th of July. Let us look at the current affairs today. The first thing you have to understand is about the right to be forgotten. So let us look at this. Let me select my marker first. Okay. So the Delhi High Court, who has laid this judgment, not the Supreme Court, but the Delhi High Court, this is where we start. The Delhi High Court has laid down a landmark framework governing the right to be forgotten. The right to be forgotten in India through its rulings in Lakhvir Singh Yadav versus Union of India case. Through which case? Lakhvir Singh Yadav versus Union of India. What does this right do? This right empowers the individuals to seek the removal, erasure, or de-indexing of personal information from public or digital platforms and search engine. So if somebody's personal information is there on a digital platform which is available to public and it can be searched through search engines, then this right to forgotten allows the removal of it or erasure of it or de-indexing from the records. And particularly it occurs when it is causing harm, that when people can see these records, they're causing ongoing harm and they no longer serve any legitimate public interest. Okay, there's no usefulness of it, it's only causing harm now, and then this right can be used, and Delhi High Court has laid down a framework governing this right. And what is the name of the judgment? Lakhvir Singh Yadav versus Union of India. This is what you have to remember. Next, when we talk about the global origin and evolution of the Indian law, first, this law originated in 2014 in Europe, not in India, but in Europe, and specifically the Spanish citizen. This was because of the grievance of a Spanish citizen, Mario Costeza Gonzalez. Mario Costeza Gonzalez. What did he do? Now, he petitioned to the European Court of Justice against Google. His information was in Google. And what kind of information? He had some outstanding debts. Now, these debts were published in the newspaper. Now, what did Mario do? He had already settled these debts after the publication. But even after years of the publication of the debt, the settlement of the debt also was not mentioned, and he remained somebody who was in debt online. So whenever somebody could search about him on Google, they could see that Mario has an outstanding debt, while the debt has already been settled. And this was unfair to Mario and his imagery. So he filed a petition in the court, specifically the European Court of Justice, and hence the origin of this right to, um, sorry, um, right to be forgotten actually started. Sorry, I zoned out a little there. Again, what was the second step? Second step was codification of this right to be forgotten. The GDPR, GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation. What is this? General Data Protection Regulation. And where is it for? It is for EU, European Union. This is not about India. This is about European Union. And they have a General Data Protection Regulation. In that, Article 17 there is. And in that Article 17, this was finally codified. So when the landmark judgment was ruled in favor of Spanish Mario, this right to erasure was formally codified later on, and then it was incorporated in Article 17 that was already existing in the GDPR or General Data Protection Regulation of the European Union. So first, this judgment happened, then this codification happened in this rule, General Data Protection Regulation, and then it came to India. When we talk about evolution in India, just 3 years after the case of the Mario, Spanish citizen, a K.S. Puttaswamy judgment occurred. We've all heard about this K.S. Puttaswamy judgment. This is, again, when we talk about the K.S. Puttaswamy judgment, the foundation of this right in India was laid by this. And this was mainly about informational privacy as a fundamental right. Under which article? Under Article 21. This is about privacy, not right to, yes, okay. This is about privacy and not right to be forgotten or right for erasure. So after the right to privacy, which was the first step towards the right to be forgotten, we found that there's a legal vacuum before 2026 judgment, before the Lakbir Singh judgment, there was a legal vacuum. Okay. And then the Lakshmir Singh judgment happened and it finally filled that legal vacuum. There was no coherent framework and there was no uh, unified framework. So every court had different approach towards this. Some courts allowed the masking of the names. Some courts refused the masking of the names because they favored open justice. So there is a need for a striking balance between open justice and right to be forgotten and right to privacy. So courts sometimes favored the right to be forgotten and privacy, and sometimes they favored the open justice. And this caused a hustle between these. What was the need for the right to be forgotten? What is the need for it? Permanent stigma despite acquittal. What does it mean? Permanent stigma despite acquittal. That sometimes there are people who are accused of certain something, okay? And the accused are considered as criminals for the time being by the public. And even after they're acquitted, even after they're acquitted, their accusations have been deleted and they have been acquitted of those crimes, even then they continue to suffer. Because what? Because whenever their name is searched, it yields the results of their accusations in the history. Okay? So their history of accusation still is very much present, and that causes stigma despite their acquittal. Second is protection of victims and falsely accused. What does it mean? There's a digital permanence of records. The records are permanently present digitally, and this ruins the reputation of those who are falsely acquitted or falsely accused of their crimes, even after the courts have cleared them. Okay, so protection of victims and falsely accused. Now, the third is shielding private matrimonial disputes. Sometimes there are digital records that might seem like big issues, but they are just matrimonial disputes and they get sorted later on. And this unnecessary small family feud, this has no public value. This is a private matter. And this causes unnecessary social stigma and it is easily searchable online. So it is easily searchable. It causes unnecessary social stigma and this has no continuing public value. And they are just private matrimonial disputes. Sometimes even these things happen. Then preventing harm from incidental mentions. Sometimes there are incidental mentions. By chance, somebody can write my name incidentally instead of some other person's name because of simple spelling mistake. And then my reputation could be damaged. And these things can happen to everyone. So sometimes, even if I'm just slightly related to the case, I'm passing by when an event is happening, a very massive protest is happening, and even if I'm passing by and my name just gets in the books, gets in the records, my reputation could be damaged even when I'm not even related to that incident. So preventing harm from incidental mention. Some individuals suffer reputational damage simply by being tangentially related to a case without any direct personal involvement. This is all of these, the permanent stigma, even when the accused is acquitted, protection from of the falsely accused, shielding private matrimonial disputes, and preventing harm from incidental mentions. All of these create a need for the right to be forgotten. Let us talk about some landmark judgments. First is the K.S. Puttaswamy judgment, Union of India versus Union of India, 2017. We all know about it. In this, the Supreme Court constitutionally recognized the right to privacy, and it also includes information privacy and information self-determination, and these are both becoming the fundamental right under this judgment under Article 21. Under what article? Article 21. Now let's talk about the current judgment, the Lakshmir Singh Yadav judgment. Lakshmir Singh Yadav judgment in 2026. In this, the Delhi High Court ruled that the right to be forgotten naturally flows from Article 21's guarantee of dignity and information privacy. So Article 21 guarantees right to life and liberty. In this right to life and liberty, there is right to live with dignity. And in this right, 2017 judgment, Puttaswamy judgment, included the right to information privacy. And combining the right to the guarantee of dignity to life and combining the information privacy guaranteed in 2017, these both naturally give the way to the right to be forgotten. So this operates even against private commercial entities such as search engine. Now this becomes very important. Is this applicable only against state? No, even against private commercial entities such as search engines, because this becomes crucial. How will you exercise a right to be forgotten when you cannot include the private information givers like search engines like Google and social media sites like Facebook and everything like that? And then we have the structured proportionality test. So Delhi High Court established that the retention of these digital records must have a legitimate purpose. They can only be retained if there is a purpose for them to be retained. And any harm to privacy must be carefully weighed against what? Public interest. Okay. Next, we talk about the way ahead. What is the way forward towards making this right occur as in our day-to-day lives? How? First is operationalizing the Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023. So the government must notify the rules for this Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 and make it fully operational uh, through the Digital Data Protection Board to address the erasure of such erasure requests very efficiently and very organized and systematic manner. So these rules should be notified. The rules should be notified and the board must become fully operational. Okay, and fully operationalize the data protection board. Why should this board be operationalized? So that it can process these erasure requests efficiently and systematically. Okay, this was all about the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. What is the second way forward? The second way forward is establish a tiered dispute system. What do we mean by that? So to prevent bottlenecks in the judicial system, these erasure requests should first be handled by tech platforms and then escalated to the data protection board if they are contested after the tech platform. And only then, only after the data protection board, then they should reach the court for final judicial review. So there should be a tiered system to address the disputes in case they occur. Okay, reach the courts only for the final judicial review. Okay, the court should be not be the first destination of these. Okay, first destination should be tech platforms, and after that data protection board, and after that the courts. Next one is about improving digital accuracy over obfuscation. Obfuscation means making things unclear. Okay, so instead of making things unclear, there should be improvement in digital accuracy. So the systems must be regularly refreshed. The information should be regularly updated. Like if somebody has been acquitted after an accusation, then that should be updated in the system. If somebody is discharged and considered not guilty, it should be updated in the system. Instead of just deleting and hiding information, we should also update the information that is there already present. Let us read this. Legal databases must be mandated to display contextual updates such as acquittals or discharges rather than relying solely on hiding or deleting information. Okay. Next is ensure cross-platform technical compliance. Ensure the cross-platform technical compliance. This right is largely symbolic. So if the D, how is it symbolic? Because if the de-indexing occurs on one search engine, the information is still available on another search engine. If I cannot find it on Google, I can go for Ecosia or Bing or Yahoo or some other search engine that is usually used by a large number of people, and I can find it there, right? But if we coordinate all the technical mechanisms, if we coordinate everything, then we can prevent the archive copies and the social media mirrors and everything from resurfacing this data, and we can delete it from everywhere. So there should be cross-platform technical compliance. Okay, and again, there's one more thing that the Delhi High Court has laid down one important framework, of course, but a Supreme Court ruling is also very necessary after this. A definitive Supreme Court ruling is necessary to create a binding, and only after the Supreme Court ruling it will be made binding and it will have a nationwide standard, and hence privacy, the right to privacy and the right to removal or erasure of their data can be then balanced with open justice. Okay. Now let us look at the next news. This is very interesting approach of approaching international relations. I love studying about this. The first news is a G minus 2 for India Pacific. What is G minus 2? A G minus 2 architectural, G minus 2 um dynamic is a very interesting dynamic for the India Pacific architecture, especially where it was given by C. Rajamohan, the strategist, and then he said that in this kind of setup, the middle powers, not the big powers like US and China, not the small powers, the middle powers like India are deepening their regional partnership and they are maintaining strategic autonomy involving the US-China relations. Let us study more about the G minus 2 strategy. So it is a practical adaptation by major Asian middle powers. And what are they doing through this adaptation? They're expanding their room for strategy, expanding their rule for diplomacy. And let us see how this G minus 2 architecture came into being in the Indo-Pacific. How this happened was first there was anxiety over the US-China duopoly. We all know that the world has now two different poles. One is the US centric and one is China centric. So Indian and Asian strategists have long been uneasy about this potential G2 superpower axis. This is called the G2 superpower axis, where Washington and Beijing, that is US and China, dictate the entire regional term unilaterally, and no other country can do that. So what is happening? That historically they are very uneasy about these two superpowers governing the entire world dynamic. Then again, US foreign policy flux. What do we mean? Washington's mercurial diplomacy. What is the meaning of Washington's mercurial diplomacy? Mercurial means fluctuating at a whim. Like Washington or US can change its diplomacy suddenly at any point of time based on its mood. And this causes a huge problem. This causes so when US is alone controlling the entire diplomacy, the entire rules as per its mode, then it causes a huge problem for all the other nations. And this whole mercurial diplomacy by US, including the sudden decisions and the sudden administrative decisions, these downplay the Asia Pacific terminology. And what does it do? It creates all the more reason for all these Asian nations to take the matters in their own hands. Next is surge in high level Asian engagements. What does it mean? Recently, more and more Asian nations like Japan, like South Korea, like Indonesia, they are more and more having these engagements with countries like India. Like Prime Minister Takaichi, she visited Delhi. South Korean President Lee Yang-myung, he also had strategic summits, and all of these things are happening, where Asian nations are participating more and more amongst themselves. Then there is the paradox of interdependence. What is the paradox of interdependence? It is that every nation is somehow interdependent on each other, but again, somehow they're controlled by China. That is, they are trying to make their decoupling occur with China. They're trying to decouple with China, but it is very much impossible because there's a lot of regional trade combined together, and that includes China. So they need to decenter both US and China. And then, what are the opportunities for G minus 2 framework? Let us talk about the opportunities of these. Number one is de risking supply chain vulnerabilities. What does it mean? De risking supply chain vulnerabilities? Let us talk about it. It means that first, there's a supply chain network through which the goods and the raw materials and all of these move from one country to another. Now, if a country depends too much on one big country, one nation like China, for important products, like this country manufactures a lot of products and all other countries depend on this country, then the dependent country can face a lot of problems if the exports from the big nation are stopped or restricted. De-risking means that countries like India, Japan, South Korea, they're trying to reduce their dependence on one single country. And here we're talking about China. How they're doing it? By finding multiple suppliers, by manufacturing in different countries, by making sure that their economy is more secure without completely cutting their ties with China. Simple example is that if India imports 90% of its critical electronic chips from only one country, that is, suppose China, And if that country, like is China, suddenly bans the export to India, then will Indian industries not suffer? They will suffer. So what India can do is it can manufacture indigenously, it can buy some raw materials from Japan, some chips from South Korea, and hence assemble together. And all of these countries can cooperate and reduce their dependence on that big country of China. And this is called de-risking the supply chain. The second is securing maritime choke points. Now, de-risking supply chains also has some examples like Japan's Economic Security Initiative is one example of this, and South Korea's chip pacts with India. They protect the high technology trade networks from unilateral weaponization. Trade can be weaponized unilaterally by these nations and like big nations like US and China, especially China we're talking about here. And this has to be prevented by de-risking supply chain vulnerabilities. Then we talk about securing maritime choke points. Our partnership, India's partnership with Indonesia, secures vital trade routes through the Strait of Malacca. Through what? Through the Strait of Malacca. Please look at the map of Indonesia. It is very important this year because PM Modi has this recent visit to Indonesia and a lot of deals, a lot of MOUs were signed, and hence the map of Indonesia becomes very important. And so it secures vital trade routes through the Strait of Malacca and the confluence of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Let us look at the next opportunity, that is alternative industrial sourcing networks. What does it mean, alternative industrial sourcing networks? That, for example, Australia anchors critical mineral supply, while New Zealand opens pathways for advanced agricultural technologies and high-end collaboration. That is, we do not have to source everything from China now. There are different alternate networks like Australia for the critical mineral supply. Remember these nations and what they're supplying. New Zealand for advanced agricultural technologies and for higher education collaboration. Second is deepening regional defense integration. India and Indonesia agreement to supply BrahMos cruise missile. Which missile? BrahMos cruise missile and Astra beyond visual range missiles. This has significantly expanded the sub-regional defense integration. These were the opportunities. What is the impact on India and what is the way forward? What is the impact on India? Will it have a positive impact? Will it not have a positive impact? G minus 2 concept. It will free India. It will free New Delhi or India from a direct tug of war between US and China. And thus it will widen our diplomatic options. Where is my cursor? It will widen the diplomatic options, and US and China will not be just the two nations at the center of everything. Accelerating defense industrialization. That is, co-development with Japan brings critical defense technology under the Make in India framework, and this will accelerate the defense industrialization, including the naval radio antenna system. With what? With Japan. Elevating multilateral heft. That is, strong ties with regional industrial hubs will strengthen India's candidacy for expanded leadership in International Energy Agency and a reformed UNSC. So even in organizations, in international organizations like these, our strength, our candidacy, our leadership candidature, like we are trying to become leaders and we're trying to have a say in different world issues. And that makes us aspire for a change in the organizations. And India is leading for that. India is aspiring for that kind of change. And this will help us promote it even further. What is the way forward? How can it be achieved now? Number one, expediting the 7,000-kilometer high-speed rail grid. What is the 7,000-kilometer high-speed rail grid? So India is in works with the Japanese engineers, and it is trying to advance the internal transport modernization, and the corridors will open in time for 2027. This is one effort by India and Japan together. It will come in effect by 2027. 7,000-kilometer high-speed rail grid. We have already talked about it once. I think we talked about MAHSR, Mumbai Ahmedabad High Speed Rail Corridor. It will operationalize also 1,000 biogas plant pipelines in connection with Japan. Cooperatives for Biogas for Growth Initiative. Cooperative Biogas for Growth Initiative. Also, redesigning micro irrigation frameworks for smallholders to counter groundwater depletion in central and western India. Micro irrigation in central and western India. Whenever some countries' leaders visits India or Indian leaders visit some other country, there are various things that come in development and these become important. Like the Japanese Prime Minister, the Japanese President, she visited India and all of these things that started happening. These became important for the news. Like Indian PM visited Indonesia recently and then all of these things became important. So whenever there are international relations in news, it is only because the leaders are meeting or some big event is happening in the world. So you have to pay attention to events like that and visitations like that. Next is enact rigid legal protection against data extraction to guard sovereign data set from foreign artificial intelligence. Even data needs to be protected. Cyber war is another kind of war and US and China are at the center of it and they are actually leading it. So even our data needs to be protected from foreign artificial intelligence. Don't use any AI just because you want to. Okay, your data can be extracted and it is being done by many of the AI platforms. Accelerate domestic economic reforms and strengthen India's own defense industrial base as the ultimate foundation of the strategy. There should be not just international reforms, not just reducing dependency internationally. There should be reforms within the country itself. This will strengthen India's own defense industrial base, and this will be the ultimate foundation of the strategy. Next, we talk about Brazil's biofuel adoption, which is a global benchmark. Brazil has successfully adopted biofuels in its economy and it is a benchmark for the world. Why is it? It is mainly because of the flex fuel vehicles. What are flex fuel vehicles? Flex fuel vehicles are the vehicles that can use fuel flexibly. There's a lot of flexibility. They can choose what fuel they want to use. They can use oil-based fuels like petrol, diesel, and they can also use ethanol, which is not oil-based. Okay, so mainly the success occurred because of the flex fuel adoption, and now the success has become a global benchmark. Okay, how does it become the global benchmark? First of all, let's read this. Brazil's biofuel adoption is one of the world's most successful renewable transport fuel programs. It is centered on large-scale ethanol production from sugarcane. This you have to remember, ethanol production from sugarcane. This news becomes all the more important because India is trying to switch from oil-based fuels to ethanol, and now it has introduced ethanol blending. What does it do? It integrates ethanol blending, flex fuel vehicles, and a long-term policy support to reduce fossil fuel dependence and greenhouse gas emissions. This is the summary of everything. If you remember just this, you'll remember everything. First of all, what caused this success? Number one, there was ethanol blending. Number two, there were flex fuel vehicle adoption. Number three, there was a long-term policy support. And what these achieved? These achieved a reduction in fossil fuel dependence and a reduction in GHG or greenhouse gas emission. So it is a lesson for India's own energy transition, starting with the ethanol blending. Let us read further about it. The history of this fossil fuel or biofuel adoption program in Brazil. In 1931, it started with 5% ethanol blending, mandatory. Okay, it introduced the first law and mandated a 5% ethanol blending in petrol. This is clear, very easy to understand. It is happening in India right now. This is the earliest statutory biofuel requirement in the world. In 1975, the National Alcohol Program was launched. It is called Pro Alcohol by Brazil, the National Alcohol Program. In this National Alcohol Program, it promoted ethanol as an alternative fuel. Okay, alternative transport fuel. And why was it put in place? Because there was a global oil crisis. And Brazil started promoting ethanol, and this is how it escaped that global oil crisis. In 2003, something extraordinary happened. The commercial production of these FFVs or flex fuel vehicles began. And what does this do? This provided the vehicles to run on petrol, ethanol, or any blend that the vehicle owner would choose. They had a choice. It was easier to switch. Switching was not complicated and it did not involve many steps. It was as simple as having the choice to just switch from one fuel to another. They eliminated the hurdles in switching to another fuel. This is one important lesson for India as well. And in 2024-2025, the Fuels of the Future law came into being. What is this Fuels of the Future law? This law strengthened the biofuel adoption with E30 petrol became mandatory. that is 30% ethanol blended in petrol. It became mandatory from 2025. E30 petrol. This is how Brazil achieved this from 1931, starting from 1931 to 2024, 2025. Brazil has significantly reduced its dependence on things like these, on crude oil. It has lowered its greenhouse gas emission. It has lowered its dependence on traditional oil-based fuels. It has fully integrated a biofuels ecosystem by aligning stable government support, vehicle manufacturing of flex fuel vehicles by upgrading its infrastructure, and through sugar production and ethanol blending. Okay, this is how Brazil achieved it, and this is how India should learn from it. Let us look at the next news, which is the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement. The news is the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement. So the 13th meeting of this AITIGA Joint Committee and Subcommittees has happened. Where it has happened? It has happened at Vanijya Bhavan in New Delhi. What is this? Let us look at these 10 different nations. The names are Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. These are 10 different nations and they together form an organization called ASEAN. Okay, ASEAN, also called as Association of Southeast Asian Nations. These 10 organizations form an association of Southeast nations which is called ASEAN. Now, ASEAN and India have a trade and good agreement. A trade and goods agreement. It is a free trade agreement. It is a comprehensive and multilateral free trade agreement. So ASEAN India trade and good agreement is called AITIGA. So this AITIGA has a joint committee and various subcommittees, and this was the 13th time they were meeting together. And this meeting, 13th meeting of AITIGA, was hosted by India at Vanijya Bhavan, New Delhi. Okay, let us look more at this. So this agreement was actually signed. When we talk about this, instead of the meeting, we talk about this agreement, ASEAN India Trade and Good Agreement. This was signed on 13 August 2009, and this was enforced or came into force from 1st January 2010. This is the origin of this agreement. What does it do? It establishes a legal and tariff network framework which governs merchandise trade across all 10 ASEAN member states. It is mainly about trade and trade related tariff framework networks and legal framework. Let us look at it. What are the key functions of the subcommittees? It has various subcommittees. First subcommittee is Subcommittee on NTMA, that is National Treatment and Market Access. A subcommittee on National Treatment and Market Access says that the goods that are imported have to receive the same treatment that the domestic products receive. There should be no discrimination between domestic goods and goods that are received by this. What will this do? This will reduce the non-tariff barriers and this will improve the fair and smoother market access between ASEAN and India. Second is the Subcommittee on Rules of Origin Enforcement. Rules of Origin Enforcement. This will actually verify if the product originally actually originated in ASEAN or India, or is it not of that origin. How will it do? It will apply strict origin rules. It will prevent third country goods. Any country other than India and Asia will be prevented from unfairly claiming those tariff benefits. They cannot be passed off as AITIGA goods. Okay, they have to originate in ASEAN or India. Next is Subcommittee on Customs Procedure and Trade Facilitation. What does it do? It uses these digital systems and transparent documentation and faster border clearances, and all of this completely together reduces the trade cost. This will improve the supply chain and this will simplify the custom procedure. How? By using digital system, transparent documentation and faster border clearances so that there are less hurdles and the trade is faster. Comprehensive standard synchronization. Subcommittee on Comprehensive Standard Synchronization. It harmonizes what? It harmonizes sanitary and psychosanitary measures. Measures for cleanliness and purity of the products so that it is not contaminated. No other contaminant travels from one country to another. This will harmonize these measures so that they're common amongst all the Asian countries and India, and it will have technical barriers to trade standards. This will also harmonize the technical barrier to trade standard. What will it do? It will first ensure safety and then ensure quality and this will minimize the unnecessary trade restrictions. All of these are important for, these are the important committees of AITIJ. This is ASEAN India Trade in Goods Agreement. It was the 13th meeting of this joint committee and different subcommittees, and this 13th meeting was hosted by India. And there are 10 ASEAN nations that you have to remember by heart. Next we have BRICS adopts the Guwahati Declaration. Let us read more about this. Now here you have to understand a few things. BRICS adopts Guwahati Declaration. BRICS has recently expanded membership to a lot of different countries. Those are called the expanded member nations, the recently added ones. Guwahati Declaration is something proposed against drug trafficking by India. Now how has BRICS adopted this Guwahati Declaration? So BRICS 2026 chairmanship is under India. India is the chairman this time and is hosting this meeting. So under India's 2026 BRICS chairmanship, the heads of anti-drug enforcement agencies from the expanded member nations, they adopted the Guwahati Declaration. What do we mean by that? So all these expanded nations, just like India has NCRB for anti-drug enforcement, all these member nations have different agencies for anti-drug enforcement. And the heads of these agencies from all these expanded nations came together and they officially adopted this Guwahati Declaration. Now, what is the Guwahati Declaration? It is a comprehensive multilateral security pact establishing a modernized, unified framework to combat the global narcotics trade, transnational organized crime syndicates, and money laundering vulnerabilities. Let us study these one by one. What are the key outcomes and strategic significance? First key outcome is synthetic and precursor network. What do we mean by synthetic and precursor network? What does it mean? Member states will monitor precursor chemicals and share intelligence to shut down illegal synthetic drug laboratories. So nowadays, instead of using traditional drugs, they are like heroin and morphine. Synthetic drugs are being used like fentanyl, like methamphetamine. These are synthetic drugs. So the chemicals that are used to manufacture these synthetic drugs, they will be monitored. And whenever there's a surge in these chemical uses, this intelligence will be shared. And hence, such drug laboratories will be shut down immediately. This is synthetic and precursor network. Second is cyber and dark net exploitation. What are they doing? What are the drug gangs doing right now? If they pay in traditional currency, digital currency or traditional currency, these payments can be tracked. So they are instead now using darknet or cryptocurrency payments. And hence, BRICS countries have decided to trace these darknet and cryptocurrency payments also from now on to stop this cooperation between drug criminals. Okay, let us look at it. Cyber and darknet exploitation, the joint tracking of anonymous cryptocurrency transactions and dismantling of illicit online narcotics marketplaces. We understood the synthetic and precursor networks about the synthetic drugs and the chemicals used in it, precursor chemicals like fentanyl and all these. Real-time intelligence sharing. Live operational data exchange on smuggling routes will enable immediate cross-border law enforcement action. Let me explain it to you. What does it mean? So if India today gets to know about one drug cartel and knows that it is having a shipment in another country, in Brazil or UAE or China, someplace, not China, in Brazil or UAE, what will India do? It will immediately, in real time, share that intelligence, share that information with the other country so that the smugglers can be caught in that country. There should not be a delay and there should be no hiccup in intelligence sharing. So live operational data exchange should be happening. Next is BRICS Virtual Working Group. What is the BRICS Virtual Working Group? India proposed digital platforms will facilitate continuous information exchange and agency capacity building. There should be a virtual working group. It should be a digital platform. And in that, therefore, it should be continuous information exchange without delay and capacity building of the agencies. BRICS Virtual Working Group. This also came as an outcome of this Guwahati Declaration. Then, people-centric demand reduction. What do we mean by people-centered demand reduction? Enforcement balanced with public health via rehabilitation, treatment, and youth awareness campaigns. So just catching smugglers and reducing the number of drugs being made and shutting down illegal drug labs is not enough. There should be awareness, there should be de-addiction, there should be rehabilitation of people exposed to drugs. These should also be the focus so that the demand for the drugs is reduced. And lastly, we have some strategic significance. What is the strategic significance of this? It validates India's zero tolerance approach. India has a zero tolerance approach against drugs. Zero tolerance approach. So India's network-centric model validates India's zero tolerance approach and boosts the vision of narcotics control. Then expanded bloc cooperation. It unites the old nations of BRICS and the newly inducted members of units BRICS under a single security framework. Okay. It secures global trade corridors. Joint maritime surveillance will secure the vulnerable shipping routes against large-scale cartel smuggling operations. This was it for this news. Let us proceed to the next one. This next news is about the Indra Point. So the Union Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. It wants strict coastal regulation zone clearances. It wants clearances from these coastal regulation zone, and it wants to reinforce and develop a tourist hub around the Indra Point lighthouse. So India's southernmost point is Indra Point. We all know it is a critical geographical feature. It is the absolute southernmost tip of India's sovereign territory. It is in the Great Nicobar Island. So what is it? It is a primary functional landmark. It is 35-meter high cast iron lighthouse tower. A 35-meter high cast iron lighthouse tower at Indra Point, and this ministry wants to develop a tourism hub around it. Let us look at the geography of it. It is on Great Nicobar Island. This island is what? Great Nicobar. It is a part of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, so it is part of the Indian territory. Okay. Next, when we talk about this location, we can also say that it lies south of Galathea Bay. There's a Galathea Bay, and it lies immediately south of that bay. It is a designated site for India's upcoming multi-billion-dollar international container transshipment port. Okay. Galathea Bay, this is the Galathea Bay. This is the hub for what? Transshipment port, international container transshipment port. Okay, it is upcoming for India, and this is the designated site for it, the Galathea Bay. And this Indra Point lighthouse lies just south of the Galathea Bay in the Great Nicobar Island in the Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar Island, which is the territory of India. This was about the location of it. When we talk about the nomenclature of it, so during the British era, during early independence also, this site was called Pygmalion Point or Parsons Point. Pygmalion Point and Parsons Point. It was renamed Indra Point in 1985. So if somebody asks you Pygmalion Point, it is the same as Indra Point, it's just the older name of it. Okay, so in 1985 it was renamed when then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi visited it in 1984, and then she passed away, and hence it was named after her. Okay, so to honor her memory, in 1984 she visited, then she passed away, and in 1985 to honor her memory, this was renamed the Indira Point. And then the towering cast iron lighthouse, which is 35 meter, it was constructed in April 1972, which is not that important. What are the key features of it? A permanent post-tsunami land subsidence. We all know Indra Point already subsided during the tsunami of 2004. So it sank by 2.04 meters. Sank by 2.04 meters after the tsunami. And it submerged the lighthouse base. So only the structure is visible, and the base is not visible anymore. The structure is tilted by almost 4 degrees, that is 3.86 degrees. So it did not completely submerge. There was 2.04 meter submergence. Okay. What is the strategic significance of it? Again, about the submergence, the IIT Madras proposed that the submerged foundation can be repaired. They'll build a breakwater, they'll add a causeway, they'll add different things, they'll elevate the staff quarters and everything, and they rebuild it. Though the submergence of 2.04 meters can be repaired, it has been said by IIT Madras. Again, the proposed tourism infrastructure has been said that there will be a viewing tower To view it, there'll be a maritime museum, there'll be a convention center, there'll be a cafeteria. After the cafeteria, there'll be cycle tracks, and then there'll be an eco-friendly plan, and also a national memorial also. Okay. Then we move towards the strategic significance. Strategic significance of it, it will restoration of this Indira Point will reinforce India's special economic zone claims, okay, and exclusive economic zone claims, and will strengthen its strategic presence in the Eastern Indian Ocean and proximity to the proposed Galicia Bay International Container Transshipment Port, which is very important. And this makes the upgrade as a tourism hub, the Indira Point as a tourism hub, very critical. Okay, this is it about today's news. I hope you'll come tomorrow and study more with us. Thank you.